Hello everyone, this is the Good Captain. Welcome to another video in my tutorial series on the Midway Guadalcanal game system produced by Avalon Hill in the early 90s. Before we get into this turn, I was recounting the victory points for the Japanese side, and I realized I miscounted. I had given them 2 extra points. So after verifying all the worth of all of these air units in the back of the manual, it turns out that this is only 26 points worth of equipment, not 28. So, coupled with the Allied 15, the Japanese need 29 victory points to get the victory, whereas the Allies need only 26 victory points to get their victory. So it's pretty neck and neck at this point. So pretty good so far. Okay, so the Japanese are side A, so they'll conduct the assembly step first. And as the Japanese, we know that the Yorktown group is within 9 hexes of our land-based air. And just to give a quick review of what those assets consist of, we have a fighter and 3 very powerful torpedo, well, 2 very powerful torpedo groups and 1 very weak one. But this is the strike package we can assemble for units at 8 and 9 hexes without using unequal movement legs. And then at 7 hexes, we can throw in everything else, the other fighter and the other 3 torpedo bombers. So basically half our force can strike at 8 or 9 hexes and the other half at 7 or less. And we're going to put these into the normal strike box, all of them. Even if we don't actually use them to attack, we want to show the allied player that or we want to potentially scare or make the allied player consider leaving the proximity that he's in, right? So if the carrier group in I-8 decides to stay where it is, or even move closer, because we're going to be able to move 2 spaces this turn. Most naval task forces will be able to move 2 spaces this turn on both sides. It could be damaging, potentially damaging. So we want to make the allied player expend energy to prevent what this raid could mean for them. Additionally, this surface force that we are pretty sure is what this is should also feel the same pressure, right? So though this contact is outside of 9 hex range, it can be attacked due to the unequal movement legs. So we can move beyond 9 hexes. This is a 10th hex for any unit coming out of Rabaul. But then after the raid, we would just move 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 to lay out of a potential 18. Remember, doubling the air movement when you're using unequal movement legs is permissible as long as you have a legal landing place at the end of it. So we've got to open up the range, or the Allies are going to be incentivized to open up the range and move back with this group. And outside of that, there's really nothing left. There's nothing else to do as the Japanese out of Rabaul, or even arguably with the carriers. There's no new scout planes to send up this turn, and all the carrier aircraft are out of range. Shortland's gone, so there's no need to help defend it. So that's it for the assembly step on the Japanese side. On the Allied side, it's kind of the same situation. They really don't have too many moves to make on this turn in terms of the assembly step either. We're just going to have combat air patrols go up at this point. We can always move them to other locations later, so let's just get them up in the air. One here on the Yorktown and one here off of the Lexington. We could send out these scouts, but it would be fruitless. Their range is only 6, and we know there's no task forces in range. Okay. Okay, so the assembly step for both sides is complete. We now go to the ready step, and the Japanese will just tidy up their forces here, here, and at Rabaul, like so. Oh, and then at Leh, right, we have this one scout that landed there. Okay, assembly step is complete. Now the sea movement step, and again on turn 5 of any day turn, any task forces which contain ships that have movement factors of 3, all of which have movement factors of 3, all the ships have to be a movement factor of 3 in the task force to qualify, can move 2 spaces. So the strike force will close 2 spaces onto Rabaul, and next turn will finally be in Rabaul Harbor, where we can recalibrate our fleets. For the Allies, the only safe move for Task Force 16 is to move 2 spaces to Hex C11. And then on the Japanese search board, we're actually going to be, this was I don't know if I declared this, but of course we would shadow this contact with our patrol plane, and so the Japanese now know that that's down there. Okay. And for our 2 carrier task forces, there's a couple of options. One, we could combine our combat air patrol over the Yorktown, use Lexington's combat air patrol, send it over to Yorktown, so that we would have 2 fighters over the Yorktown fleet, and leave it where it is. This would be sort of a bait to the Japanese. We would have 2 combat air patrol fighters, which would guarantee us at least one of those fighters would get a shot on the bombers if we decided to calibrate it like that. Conversely, though, these very powerful torpedo bomber units would be almost certainly used against the Yorktown, and though the anti-aircraft fire of the Allied fleets is much better than Japanese fleets in this game, it still would be probably pretty, there's a high probability it would be decisive. These attack factors are pretty high, and if conducted correctly, could spell the end of Yorktown. So, no. In point of fact, this is this shows, or at least to me, highlights why the Allies are going to have to do everything they can to make sure this battle is concluded outside of the umbrella of land-based air to the best of their ability. So, in terms of movement, we are going to move the Yorktown out of the range of the Rabaul air by moving 1 space backwards into J9, and then moving closer to Task Force 16 into I-10. And the Lexington Task Force is going to move 1, 2. So we're going to close up on, everyone's going to get closer together here. And my long-range Allied plan is to basically do what one of the goals was at a certain point in the Battle of the Coral Sea anyway. I'd like to cover or stay within range of the China Strait and the Jomard Passage, and cover Port Moresby from invasion by being just within airstrike range of this area here. In other words, the Japanese transports would have to pass through this gauntlet to invade, to drop their troops off at Port Moresby. So that is, we're going to basically be operating in the Coral Sea, believe it or not. And protecting this area here, or covering this area here, and basically forcing the Japanese to come engage us with their carriers outside of their land-based air, so that we have a more of a one-on-one fight on our hands. Okay, so now we're on to the air movement and search step. So I'll place this airstrike on the board, but we'll start with our scouting air units first. We'll start with the scout that we had shadow the Allied contact down here. It expended 2 movements to track the fleet, so it will still have 9 movements remaining with which to convert to a search modifier to improve our chances of getting accurate information. So we'll do that. We'll spend all 9 hypothetical points remaining, even though we can't fly off because we declared that we were doing a shadowing. We can still hypothetically spend, or we can still spend all 9 remaining quote-unquote points to get a better result on our search. So 2 times 9 is 18, so we have a positive 18 from that. And then add 3 for daylight. We have a positive 21. We roll a d10, the result of which is a 6. So we have a net of 27. And the allies will roll. And they roll a 10. Okay, so they don't know exactly what's there, but they do know well, they get exact information. They qualify for that, but it's not 3 times as much, so we don't have to. Anyway, it's a moot point. They got exact information. They can deduce after we give them the exact amount of ships, and they can see our operations card that, okay, that indeed is the service force. All the mysteries have been solved at this point. So the next scout is this patrol plane 11. We want to head back to our 2 old contacts. I'll just flip these so we know that they're not legitimate. We know that this is where each carrier group was. They could be within 2 hexes of these spaces, so we'll head in that direction. Okay, so let's go ahead and move this patrol plane. 1, 2, 3, and we're searching all these hexes all the while. 4, 5, 6, just at a good. It's a good practice just to search everything. At this point, there's no secrets to keep in regards to where this plane came from. Or 7, 8. And we'll go ahead and search this this area here. 7, 8, 9, and we'll go to K10 and J9. But we're at 9 here, and I think we run into something. Yeah, J10. We run into the J10 Task Force 11. So we're at 9. And we're just gonna, we want to search these next 2 hexes, so we'll just take the positive 3 for daytime and roll a dice. Keep our movements. So we rolled a 7, add 3, that becomes a 10. Allies roll a 1, so we got it on the cheap anyway. So we'll put an exact contact here. And we find out this is the, I think, do we have, yeah, we have Combat Air Patrol. Forgot to do that first. It wouldn't have mattered at all because we didn't expend any. So if that happened, but here's the Combat Air Patrol. Allied dice roll 6. On a 1 or a 2, this float plane is gone. No. Okay. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And we got 2 more movements. We'll go for... okay, so we know they didn't join up. Yeah, so we'll go 9, 10. There's nothing there. And yeah, 11, nothing there, right? Let's check our board. Right, it's an I-10. Okay, so we're almost done, but not quite. We still have that air raid. We'll remove this. So we found Lexington, Yorktown. We did not locate just as of yet. And we'll actually now move this air raid that doesn't have a target 1, 2, 3. It was essentially a patrol at this point. Again, we have to move them all together and as a stack as per the rules. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, and I8 and I9 both have nothing in them. So that's it for the air movement and search step. I've been neglecting this, but it is a good practice. When you are doing your C searches or your searching, you can actually do what's called C searches as well. In other words, the task force markers themselves can search the hexes they're in. Normally you don't do this because it shouts out to your opponent. It can, let your opponent know where your units, your naval task forces are, so you don't really want to do that. But part of this is also calling out your base units. You can search your base, in other words, the lay base could say, are you in hex A4? So the base units can search their own hexes. So it's a good practice to just do that, but I've been neglecting accounting for that in these videos, but at any rate. The Allies don't have any air movements or searches to conduct. So we move to, and there's no battles this turn. So we'll move straight to the air return phase. And though the Japanese go first, since I'm here, and I always forget to do the combat air patrols, we're just going to move the... Oh, you know what we forgot to do here? We forgot to do the ready step. Yeah, we forgot to do the ready step for the Allies. Okay, now the combat air patrols return. Oops, I got those backwards. Okay. And the Japanese as well. So both of the patrol planes that were on patrol will return to the Rabaul base. Arming box. And the air raid out of Rabaul will just return to Rabaul empty-handed as well. Okay, so that's it for the air return phase. And because we have exact information on the 2 American task forces here, the Japanese will check for submarines. So since they're side A, they'll roll first. A 3. The only way there's a sub attack is if the Allies now roll a 1, and they don't. So no sub attack this turn. And we move to the. We just advance the turns. So we'll be going into evening of May 4th. Okay. And we'll go ahead and roll and close this video. So since the Japanese had side A, they'll roll first. They roll a 4, the Allies roll a 5. So the Allies will be side A for our first night turn. And in the next video, we'll just do both night turns. It's pretty quick. Not a lot happens at night, but some, there are some crucial things that can occur. So thanks for watching this. All the best from the good captain, and bye-bye.